Oh my gosh. Here we are. It is June 1st, 2022, and we are here being grown as women. And we know it's June or the summertime at least because I got all my arms out. Y'all seeing all of these arms and shoulders and things. Mostly because it's hot as hell outside. And I was just like, I can't do all of this. Anyways, welcome to Grown as Women through with Onyx Therapy Group. Let's do our introductions, ladies. Who are you? Who you grown ass women?
Hey, I'm Jonai. Hey, y'all.
Hey, Jay, and happy anniversary, babe.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Nikki.
Hey, Nick.
And I'm Dee.
Hey, Dee. Hey. We are missing Ayana. She is probably out doing her mommy thing with her baby. You know, when it get hot outside, you got to take the kids to the park. That's the only way they leave you alone. Otherwise, they be in the house asking for juice boxes and apple slices, and it's just too much. So you got to take them outside. So hopefully she'll join us a little bit later. But I am super excited for this edition of Grown As Women, especially because there's been so much happening in the world lately, right? And of course, for everybody listening, these are my best friends, and we talk all day long. We probably got 85 group texts. We be talking about the Lord together, then we be talking about ratchet stuff together, and then sending Instagrams to each other. So it's always funny when we get to get on here and get to talking.
I think I talk to y'all more than my wife.
Truth, right? Truth. And you know what the worst is? When you be sitting there, I be sitting there talking to Megan or the kids, and I'll be like, because remember I told y'all? And then I really have been telling y'all, and I had not been telling them. And they be like, girl, go talk to your friends. Yes. I wanted to see if you guys are okay starting off with the Kevin Samuels thing, right? Like, so even as we talk about who he is, I want to first say, for him to rest in peace, right? Like, he served whatever purpose he was on this earth to serve, and subsequently it was his time to transition. So I do hope that he rests in peace. But honey, what that man purpose and serving was, I was like, who are you and what are you talking about? And I have been talking about this with everybody. I have been talking about it with my baby father. Shout out to my baby daddy. And he had an interesting perspective. I talked about it with my kids, of course, with my wife, with y'all, with some other friends. And I was like, this Kevin Samuel thing is a little too juicy to not put on grown ass women. Like, we have to talk about it. So what y'all grown asses have to say about Kevin Samuels?
Well, I have to say, today I was listening to something he recorded about, I think the title was called Women Party of One or something like that. So he was just basically talking about how, educated women think that that they're waiting for this magical man. And there was so much to it, and I was still listening to it. I have to say, this man is hilarious, though. He is hilarious. And I will admit, and as we keep talking, I'll remember some of these points that he made. There were a few things that I actually agreed with.
Yeah.
I actually agreed with some of the things that he said. I think sometimes just the delivery and the confidence that he has in what he's saying might not sit well with people.
Yeah.
But I think generally, I think some of it might hurt a little bit because it might be true.
Yeah.
But I'll let you go into some more things because you have a little bit more knowledge about him. Okay.
So I listened to the same podcast episode or wherever it was, Jay, and he made a comment that educated or modern women want men to follow their program and men aren't having it. That was true. I'm sorry. From my perspective, from what I've been through, it's very true. Men have their own thing going on and they expect a woman to fall in line, whether it's working, whether it's not working, whether it's established. They just want you to follow them. And for me, in my own relationships, it's just not been the case. I done met some men I wouldn't let leave me out of wet paper bag. But, they still have that mentality that they want to lead. They want you to fall in on their families, on the place they live and what they're doing, no matter what you've got going on, whether it's better for the union. So that was a really good point. I also feel like some of the women that he might have been addressing during some of his conversations about, you might be a 5 and you want a guy who's got this money and doing this thing. There's a certain population of women who feel that way, but that's not all women. And he probably needs to broaden who he's talking to. I also heard an interview with him with some other lady, and she just I'm sorry, stupid and confused. And I think he was just a manipulator. I'm just saying, y'all jump in.
Well, to both your point and Jonai's point, I actually found that I agree with some of the things that he had to say, right? And we all know, we've already talked about on Grown Ass Women, how important communication style is and how important delivery is and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not a fan of Kevin Samuels, so I don't have in being a fan, meaning that I don't listen to all his work and follow him and all of that kind of stuff. I just remember that clients would bring him up, or, friends would bring him up. And then, in certain groups, one of his talks would come up and I'd listen to it and process it and things like that. But the truth is, the parts that I agree with is that sometimes you gotta set your standard to be realistic, right? If you got some shit with you and you didn't address it and you're not healing, you probably can't ask for everything. You know what I'm saying? True, indeed, ask the Lord. You ask the Lord for whatever you want. The Lord will provide, right? But for humans, you can't expect a human. You can't be gutter and be expecting, prime. You know what I mean? That's just not fair. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy as a person. It means that the matching isn't right, and it's going to be unequally yoked. So for folks who are big into that kind of language, you can't be all the way up here or down here and expecting that your partner is going to fill in the blanks. That's too much pressure for them. That's too much stress on them. That's not fair to them. And it's certainly not fair to you, because they're going to be making you feel like shit, especially if you want the one at the bottom, right? And so it is important that we match up properly. Now, the criteria that he used was a little demeaning, right? He was on some stuff. If you got kids and you ain't been married, I took that a little personal. I got these kids. And then I was like, but then do I get to balance it out because I'm cute? But it don't work like that, right? Not with Kevin Samuels. You just at the bottom, right? And so the criteria was a little messed up. But my major takeaway from that is, it's true. You got to match right. You got to match right. And if you don't, it's going to cause more issues in the end. And you can't ask humans for everything. You ask the Lord, but you can't ask humans for everything.
He said something like, if you're, there were a couple things that I was just like, okay, all right, you're just getting carried away. He said something like, if you're 35, if you're over 35, then you're just leftovers. If you're 35 and unmarried or something, then you're just leftovers. And I was like, wait a minute now, you're doing too much. And then he said something else like, what happened to, teachers and people that just have these basic jobs or whatever and just decide to get with a man because the man has money and we live in. It doesn't have to necessarily be great, but the bills are paid,
He also believed that if the man had money, had a career, had an education, all of these things that qualify them to be a high valued man, he should be allowed to have multiple women, to do what he wants. Because remember, the whole rating system is if you, especially if you're a woman that's bringing a child from a previous marriage, or you're not perfect in physique and waiting on him hand and foot and having his meal at the door. So the problem is he had these expectations that if you qualified to be a high value man, that gave you this leeway to kind of do what you want to do because you're a rare commodity. You know, there's more women than men. So since we're a rare commodity, the good ones, we gonna do what we want to do, and you all should be okay with that as long as we're providing and giving you time and affection. We should still be able to taking care of home. We should still be able to do what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he actually put words to what a lot of people was thinking regardless, right? So before he said it, a whole bunch of people, like, because people climbing up the social ladder all the time and the financial ladder all the time, especially in the area that we live in, right? In DC is known for like all of this social status. People first question is, you know, what you do for a living and where you go to school. You know what I'm saying? Like, or what's your zip code, where you live. People are constantly climbing that, and they think it really does make them better. And I'm not saying that it makes anybody better or worse. What I'm saying is it needs to be properly paired, right? Because otherwise there's going to be a whole bunch of issues when I'm over here with a doctorate and you down here and you chilling and I got to pay these student loans. We can't even have a conversation about certain things, right? Like, it has to be paired in a way that makes sense to me. And I think he was just, he liked being spicy and he got all these followers because of his delivery style. But he came for people. He came for the gays. Happy Pride Month for those who, you know, are with it. I guess I was about to do the black fist, but it's not. Never mind. Let me just drink my tea. Go ahead. Somebody else go on, because I did the wrong thing.
He said something about he said, so somebody said, well, I got a PhD. And he was like, so who and you got hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans too. So we even, like, basically, like, what are you saying? You got a PhD, but you got student loans out the ass, so that don't balance out. What, how do you all feel about that? Like, do you, as a woman who has a PhD, or a doctorate, you know, do you feel like that makes you, that puts you at a different level, puts you in a different status group, and that you're only looking for a certain type of person because of this status, which it essentially is, and your mate may not be there. Your mate maybe just has a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, and I'm not going to say just, because I only have a bachelor's degree and I'm happy.
I don't have a PhD, but that's a real thing. I remember my mother saying to me once, someone I was dating, that, you know, she's going to pass you being equally yoked, right? Because where is think of it as being comparable, right? Like, let's say if I have my MBA and you have an associate's degree or a bachelor's, at least you still have that experience, right? And then it gets into drive. Because you can have no degree and be a millionaire, right? Because you could be an entrepreneur, or you just could have been very successful in one area, whatever that is. So it wasn't so much about the education. It was more about the positioning and where you kind of place your values and drive, right, in life. Like, am I okay making $50,000 a year? And you don't need to be with someone that needs to make $150,000 a year just in their salary, because it's lifestyle, right? Like, your lifestyles are totally different and they can't align. But if you're okay with that, and this is where being older is almost a benefit, like, if you're okay with that, and this is one of the things that Kevin Samuels was saying, that women who are older that don't have the kid yet or haven't been married need to lower their standards. So it's not like when you're 25 going into the work world, and his point was, you could be making almost six figures, but you shouldn't be, you know, back then you might have expected this super successful man, but when you're over 35 and in your 40s, you should be okay with the $50,000 garbage man, as long as he's coming home and treating you right, right? But then your lifestyles are different. So when you want to go across and travel across the, you know, country and travel the world, and he's like, who's paying for that? That's not important to me. I just want to come home and cook and be with my family. So it's also lifestyle, right? Do your lifestyles align with each other?
So, kind of sidebar to that, you said janitor. It made me think of something from some years ago. If your person if somebody came to you and wanted to date you and they said that they were the janitor at something prep school, but they made 200K, would you be okay with that?
Because that meant
I mean,
that's
never,
his contract.
never wore
That
a
means
suit.
that is his contract.
Girl, I dated
And he got some other
before.
janitors.
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you, I would be the toilet scrubber.
Wait a broom.
For the
Wait a
right,
bathroom
the right
broom.
price.
Totally. It's not job title, it's lifestyle.
Well, you know, what's funny about that is as much as we talk about our astrology, we don't always spend a lot of time talking about where we stand in numerology either, right? Because some of us have numerological standings that are actually comparable to our astrology. Some people are really based on status. Status really matters to them. I'm a number 8 in numerology, and number 8s are status people, right? But that's not what everybody is. And so I think it's a matter of knowing yourself and knowing what's capable and not capable. To answer your question, Jonai, I'd probably ask him, and I was about to say too, Nikki, when you had mentioned something about the sanitation workers, I was like, sanitation workers are nice to me. They nice. They always be like, good morning. Hey, hey, beautiful. You know what I'm saying? They be like, hey, doing all this. And so I be liking the sanitation workers. Clearly I'm married, right? So, but that's not going to happen. But knowing me, to answer both of you guys' question, I'd probably ask the janitor if he wants to make a business out of it. And then does he want to delegate, right? Like, you don't always have to be the one doing the work. Now, if he enjoys doing the work, then we're probably not going to have as much of an issue because he's going to be happy at work, right? And so he'll bring that happiness, or she'll bring that happiness home. But to be truthful, I don't know if I don't be calculating people's money like that, because that's just not how I live life. I have a separate bank account than my wife and all that kind of stuff. So the salary doesn't matter as much to me, but there will be some things that I need, right? Like, can you have a conversation with me? Do you like leadership? Can we delegate? You know, when you take off your uniform, do you know how to put on something else that's nice? Can we show up in pictures together? And parts of that may make me very shallow, but everybody know I'm super deep, right? Like, so the reality is that's probably the shallow side of me is connected to the status. I like being able to say my wife does this, or my friends do this. I like to be able to take pictures with my friends and my wife and my children and know that we look nice. Like, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't think that's shallow though. Like, I don't see that as shallow. And like, enjoying nice things because you work hard and you want your life to be somewhat of a representative of who you are and the work that you do. Like, I don't think that's shallow. But
well, I think the part that she was saying shadow was like the title part of it that gives you status. So where you still might be the toilet scrubber, you know,
we gonna call it something different. We gonna call it something different. You are an environmental specialist. We gonna call, okay.
Environmental specialist.
But environmental specialists probably have a GS level. But anyway, that's you know, a job that we think has a minimum wage salary that could potentially be more than what we think, or what we grew up learning about these certain positions. I think LaNail was just saying you still want the status of your person having some ultimate job or some sort of title or some sort of position. I think a lot of people are like that, even if they say that they're not. I honestly, like, for instance, my wife, it doesn't, to me, I'm glad she makes the money that she makes, of course, but her title and what she actually does is so cool to me. And I'm so proud of it. And I do love to say it. She doesn't. There's so many people that have no idea what she does, and she likes it that way. I'm like, why wouldn't you? We walked into some museum in California or whatever, and they were talking to her about people that she works with. And she's in there like in her t-shirt and some Yeezys chilling. And I'm like, why don't you say whatever? I'm like, you're a part of history. And she's like, nah, I'm good, and I think it's so cool. So I guess that could be status based. I don't know, but I am proud of her and what she does. So I don't know, but I still, I mean, as long as her salary was the same, I don't care what she did.
And what's crazy about that is that I never tell people what Megan does, right? Like I let her tell people that. So while I say like the title does matter to me, it doesn't really come up in conversation much. It comes up for me because of the work that I do, and I'm usually pitching my company to something, right? Or someone. But in general, it matters, but I don't know. Like, does it really? Because how often do we go up to somebody and be like, my partner is a GS such and such at such, like we don't really.
Yeah.
I think maybe only certain positions you do that. But generally, how often do y'all do that?
Never.
Like, yeah, I don't. I want to, but I don't because she doesn't. So I'm not going to take her privacy away. So like y'all know, but I actually do have people that I associate with that I don't think have any idea.
Yeah.
And it's cool too, because that means you don't care. You just like her and like us for us. So
yeah. You were gonna say something. You were gonna say a lot because we done talked about the environmental specialist and the thing.
Yes. No, I was gonna say I also think there's a part of us who looks at their mate and kind of compares whether or not they would be they would make great kids. Like, are they smart? Do they have the ambition? And that's reflected in what you do. That's reflected in your status in life. Are they good looking? Because we all know there's studies that show good looking people get in the door first. It's not a myth. So we look at those things. I think that a part of that is innate. And when we're looking at a partner, when we're looking at someone that we're dealing with for life or just for the moment, when we're in selection, I think part of that is just innate. What do you think?
I agree. And I think what I heard you say, and I'm like, oh yeah, that probably is it, is less about the title of the status, and again, more about the what's the word I'm trying to say? The compatibility, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that equally yoked piece again. Mm-hmm. But to Jonai's very direct question, would it matter to me? I probably would say yes. And the title, we would be adjusting what the title is, right? Just because I don't want to have to deal with the connotations, right? I don't want to have to like correct all the time. I don't want to have to do all of that stuff all the time. And we do make connections to a person's title and a skill set the same way we do about college, right? Like we have assumptions about people who went to college, like maybe they're organized or not, right? Or they at least know how to be in the class or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's kind of where.
But how does that, what if your partner is A-okay with what they do, confident, speaks well, interacts with people, dresses nice, and drives a G-Wagon, or whatever your car of choice is.
Well, my wife was driving a Civic for 85,000 years. That never bothered me. As long as she put a Louis Vuitton bag in the trunk for me. But you know what? Never mind.
Nan.
Exactly. You guys, I'm going to say, because now that I'm thinking about the janitor thing on the surface level with the money, you're like, no, I wouldn't care. But no, I think thinking about it, I have to retract that and say, yeah, I would. And here's why. If I'm at a certain level in my career and I'm going to certain functions, and LaNail, you kind of touched on it, I don't want to have to explain, right? Because if it's a work function, and let's say I'm still trying to climb, let's go more towards private industry, right? I'm still trying to climb in that company. you are being judged by the full package. And also for me, as I'm learned, I like challenges. I like to be challenged. So I actually like that who I'm with is, if they are slightly more successful, or I'm around women that are educated or might have more education, like there's something in that for me, because I need those challenges in life. I like that. So I guess I'd have to say it wouldn't matter in the beginning, but at some point it would definitely, long term, it would matter. It would absolutely matter. You know, just kind of thinking about that, it would matter.
Well, you could do like
Someone
LaNail
with
said. Oh, sorry, Dee. Go ahead.
As someone with lived experience, I'm going to say it didn't matter to me, but for that individual, it definitely mattered when we were in those conversations about what do you do. He would always often say something cute like, "Oh, if I tell you I gotta kill you," capital, you know, stuff like that, you know. And I got it. I understood it because it wasn't like his dream job. It wasn't where he wanted to end up. Definitely not the full potential of their skill set. Definitely, you know, bringing home the proper amount of money comparable to what I made where I am in my career. But just as saying it aloud to people and having people ask more questions about it, it was awkward for that individual. It was awkward for them. It didn't matter to me because, again, like you said about the Louis Vuitton bag, you know, we could do what we wanted most of the time when we wanted to. So it was good.
You know, that then brings up another point, that maybe it's not just about their title and status. It's also about how they feel in those kind of settings. Because if every time we go out and somebody asks you about what you do and you're like, I'm a janitor or environmental specialist or sanitation worker, whatever you want to call it, but then you're going to start closing off and being insecure, and you're not going to engage in conversation anymore. Or as soon as we get in the car, you're going to be picking a fight with me because you feel insecure and you want me to feel bad too. Then see, again, that goes back to the equally yoked piece. Like, how does it actually fit? Does it fit together? And so maybe we don't even have the options that we think we have. Maybe we're sitting here and we're like, hypothetical, would you date somebody like this? But would they date us? And would it be healthy? You know, they might also be looking at us like, I ain't dating that bougie B. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've been on both ends of the spectrum.
I'm not bougie, by the way. Go ahead, Nikki.
I've been on both ends of the spectrum. And I'm going to say it builds resentment. I've been in the lower end of the spectrum as far as financial and educational compatibility. I've been on the mid-level kind of end of the spectrum, and there was still resentment there. And then I've been on the other end. The other person was considered to be more successful and made more money. And all three of those, and this is how, and you know, it's because of those experiences where I can say, you know what, I think it would matter. Because what happens is, if, you know, I'm having to do too much, and back to our friend Kevin Samuels, if I'm bringing all of the things that you're bringing to the table, right, but yet more is still expected of me, or I am still doing more, but you want to be recognized as this leader in this submissive role, it's not going to work. If you really want to go to the traditional submissive, there's one, you know, aspect of hetero households, then you're gonna have, for me, you're gonna have to make more than me. You're gonna have,
and so that's the real point. I think it's more or less how you want to deal with each other, who's gonna play what roles, and outlining all of that. Because I too have been, you know, on both ends of the spectrum, and it is the same thing, like you said, Nikki. There's still resentment, there's still misalignment, there's still this role that some people want you to play, or, you know, they dip it off doing what they feel like they can get away with. It just depends. You have to lay all of that out. You just gotta lay it out.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear that this isn't just about men and women, right? Like, those are the kind of languages we're using right now, mostly because of how we've been socialized and because of the conversations that have. But we find this in the LGBTQ community too, where there's gender roles connected to things. I don't know if I'm echoing, I'm sorry about that. But there's like gender roles that are, it is me, I'm echoing.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody else go ahead. Let me check my audio.
Oh, go ahead. You're making a point. She's making a good point.
How's it now? Still echoing?
No, it's good, I think.
So I think that the gender role piece is it's in both communities, in all communities, and we find the same thing where a woman will say, well, I bring this to the table, and they still like maybe are demeaning their partner or whatever the case may be. Like right now, because of how we entered the conversation about Kevin Samuels, it sounds very heteronormative, but it's in the LGBTQ community too. It's in the queer and pan community too. Like it's all over the place because that's how we've been socialized. We've been socialized for the need of hierarchy as opposed to partnership. And so it's like, well, if all these women or these people are doing these things, then how does somebody still be the top? How do they still lead when everybody is on the same damn playing field? We all making money, we all working, we all buying houses or accomplishing goals and being boss babes and whatever the case may be. Like, so then we have to start, because people keep wanting a hierarchy, they're now adding additional criteria, right? Like now it's so you got an education and you got a house, but do you cook and clean? No, nigga, I hire somebody to do it for me, and so I could sit here and enjoy my time with you on the couch. Because otherwise you're gonna say we don't have quality time because I'm over in the kitchen slaving. Oh, excuse me, not the right term, but I need to be quiet, y'all. I'm using all the wrong language today.
Okay.
But y'all know what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Jay. Somebody say, can I pass the baton? I'm over here using all the wrong language.
Pass the mic.
I'm passing the mic. You got it, Jay. Go ahead.
I got it. So can we also add, I mean, all of this is, social, economic stuff. But what about just your social status, period, aside from the money that you make? So let's say we are kind of on the same playing field, or maybe you do make more money than I do, but I have more fun, or, I have more friends, or, I have more associations or affiliations. Do you see that, happening in relationships where there's this battle or this envy or jealousy or resentment is the word I was looking for, based on that? I don't know. I've seen it before. I think I've experienced it as well. But I don't think that it's ever admitted.
I've experienced that, but it's been more about the connections, right? Like being able to have connections or have these outlets or have these relationships where they didn't. And it was a subliminal pull where they're always trying to challenge the validity or strength of those relationships because that's not where they are. And if you're not careful, it doesn't present like jealousy or control. You know what I mean? Where it's because they almost want you, and I've seen it to happen to other girlfriends of mine too, where it's almost like, they try to plant seeds, right? Plant seeds of doubt. But then I've also been on the end where I've been with someone has more connection, knows more people. I love it, right? But again, I'm an extrovert. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Yeah. We can't go anywhere with somebody. But then that also plays into where you are, where you're grounded, right? How comfortable and secure are you in the relationship? A lot of that plays into it because you could know everybody, but if you're not, you could know nobody and be insecure, and it can still be a problem when your mama called. Like, why your mama calling so much? You know what I mean? It really depends on how secure you are. But I have seen that happen where, it's been in both ways, like, just kind of envious of those connections or those relationships.
I mean, for sure. I've seen it 100%. And I think what I keep hearing us talk about is how even in relationships, it's still real life. People still got their own insecurities. They got jealousy, they got resentment, they got envy, they got anger, they got insecurity, they got whatever. And they present that in their relationship too. just because you partner with somebody doesn't mean you can't be jealous of them, because it's happening, right? Or that you can't feel insecure around your own partner. You feel insecure at work and then you feel insecure at home too. Like it's a real life thing. And people would make it seem like relationships are supposed to be this perfect place or this controlled environment. And that's not the case. When you ask somebody to be real and authentic with you, you asking them to bring up everything. And it sucks. I think I've been in, and Jay and I have talked about this probably so much over at least the last 10 years. But in my past, even being partnered with people and they find themselves being jealous of me. Like we get together and everything is fine and it's beautiful. And then they start getting jealous, right? And I don't know what they're jealous about. And it in most recent years, I've accepted that people around me may have those emotions because I used to deny it, right? Like nobody could do that. I'm so regular. I'm chill. I'm cool. Like nobody is going to have those emotions around me. And it meant that I didn't acknowledge what was really happening with them. I was also denying them of their authenticity because I was uncomfortable, right? But I do think, you see jealousy in friendships and people want to say, well, that means that we got to stop being friends. Not necessarily. It means that there's some things that need to be processed and talked through and worked on. And then if that person can't address those emotions or whatever is causing those emotions, then maybe, yes, it's time for the friendship to end. But the emotions are present, right? Like, so just call them out and say what it is and address it.
Like I've never been, and I guess this is all purely self, but I've never been jealous of a friend, right? Like if the closest thing would be motivated. Like, wow, you know what? I'm so happy for them. I'm not doing enough. I don't need to do what they're doing, but maybe I should be doing, you know what I mean? Like motivated. It's never been jealousy, but you're absolutely right. I've seen it. It's just how do you move in an authentic friendship with jealousy? Because that can kind of control the words that come out your mouth, how you respond to someone and their life experiences, you know, what you're saying behind their back, if not to them. Like, how can you really be truly a friend with jealousy being present?
Do we think that the skills associated with friendship, you know how we say, you know, I love such and such. In some moments, like the emotion is really intense. And in some emotions, it's not. Do you think the same applies for friendship in that sometimes your friend can show up 100% for you and sometimes they show up 10% for you? Like, is that possible? And then it takes us to the conversation of like, what does grace look like in those moments? Because if people are lifetime friends, doesn't that mean that they're going to experience a lifetime of emotions around and maybe even with you? Like, and if they hit a bottom emotion like jealousy, does that mean the friendship has to be over, or does it mean that you increase something else to balance it out? So you increase the communication or you increase the creation of safety. Like, what do we expect our friends to be perfect? And like, what does that look like? Because we certainly don't expect our partners to, well, maybe we shouldn't expect our partners to be perfect. Like, what does it look like? If you have a lifetime friendship, isn't there going to be a lifetime full of emotions and a lifetime of balance? And what does that look like for grace? I'm passing the mic again because I felt something start to slip out on the side that was a little inappropriate. So
as long as it's not the slaves in the
I would go ahead and regulate it by closing my mouth.
That's my word. Yeah, I think, Grace, you're absolutely right. There's no way that you could have a long-term friendship without some array of emotions, right? I think, but there's a difference, and we talked about this in one of our previous sessions, accountability, right? So
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Could you have jealousy and say, you know what? I was just jealous because I had this going on. I think that if you're any real friend that loves you, and if you say, I couldn't show up any more than 10% because I was jealous because of this, or maybe you don't use the word jealous, but you say, it just reminded me of what I had going on in my life, right? The self. And I couldn't really manage that. So I didn't want to show up for you and be there knowing I wasn't really going to be present. It wasn't really genuine. So, it's that accountability piece.
But what if we do label it what it really is? What if we do label it jealousy if it is jealousy? Like, why shy away from because isn't that requiring somebody to be inauthentic if they have to use a different label that's not true to what they're experiencing? That what I hear you saying, Nick, is maybe we don't want to say jealousy because we don't know how the person is going to respond to us afterwards. Like, damn, my friend jealous of me, I can't tell them nothing no more. But I would certainly feel safer if somebody told me I was jealous. I was jealous of you. Bet, let's talk about it. All right,
but maybe they don't know that. Not everybody is that self-aware to know that that's what's really driving. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You may not know that it's jealousy that was driving it. You may just know for some reason, you didn't feel genuinely to show up, right? You have to really be let's be honest. You have to be very self-aware to know that that's exactly what's at the root of it, jealousy. Like, a lot of people by a certain age, especially, have trained themselves not to use those words. Like, we've had conversations around this. You've been so programmed and trained that friends aren't supposed to be jealous. Friends aren't supposed to do this. This is going to hurt. This is like most people. I mean, think about the number of female relationships or just intimate relationships, platonic. Forget, sexual ones, just platonically intimate relationships that are at that level that they could truly be authentic 100% of the time. It's not that common. It's not that common. So I'm talking about the ones, they may not know there's jealousy. They may not know they're low-key hating, right?
It's from the expectation that your friends are grounded in what they're supposed to be doing and what their purpose in life is and what their path is, that those two paths are different. And so how could I be jealous of you? Because my path is different. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna go ahead and admit this now. I probably have an expectation that my friends know that their path is not Deana's path, and that whatever happens to Deana is probably not going to happen to you, and vice versa. And in that expectation, I don't believe that there should be jealousy, because the people that know me know my road is hard, 100%. It's always hard, and so that in some form or fashion, I've worked for this, I paid for this, I've done the hard work. So to be jealous is almost like to say, oh, you got this easier handed to you. So it comes with assumptions in friendships and where people are on their level about their path. Sorry,
I don't know what baby daddy doing downstairs, but it don't sound good. I'm sorry. I'm just
I'm trying to process it all. I think at this age, I feel like generally you try to surround yourself with people that either are doing what you're doing or a little bit more than what you're doing for encouragement and to kind of help you grow. Right. I know there are friendships too that are status based and not real friendships, and people look to be friends with people for the wrong reasons. And I think at some point, if I'm just hanging out with you because you dress nice and I dress nice too, and we look cute in pictures, then but we're not mentally on the same level, then I see that's a potential disaster at some point, because maybe somebody's up here and somebody's down here, emotionally, education wise, job, career path or whatever. So I can see jealousy jumping out in that way. And a lot of times I think jealousy comes up because of, like you said, a lack of self-awareness, and sometimes resentment toward yourself because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, all my shoulda, coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and now you have it. And to Dee's point, now it seems like you got it and you didn't work for it because I don't have it. So I think that's a big topic. I need to process that a little bit more. But I think that probably happens a lot in romantic relationships, and especially in friendships as well. So my 2 cents.
And I want to be clear that I don't think that there's a place for jealousy in a friendship. But I do think that if any emotion arrives and it causes a rift in the relationship, there needs to be grace enough to address the rift, right? Because if I have a friend who is jealous of me or jealous of what they think, I'm going to feel a lot of ways. Like, you be riding with me right next to me. You know the hard work that I put in. You know what I've done. So you shouldn't be concerned about this over there because you've been riding with me and I've had you close enough for that. But if you're jealous about it, let's talk about it, because it may mean that you feel insecure in some area of your life, and maybe I can help you, or maybe my help is just by listening so you can feel safe, right? Or something else. I don't think that jealousy should be an emotion that is constant and sitting in a friendship. But I would much rather a person tell me I feel jealous than to do some dumb shit that turns me all the way off, right? That starts to try to copy me or wants to be like me or something like that. And it doesn't feel good, because then I can't be authentic. And you haven't labeled it. It's your emotion. Like, I need you to label it. And I think like you said, Jay, this is a conversation that we probably could process in the next grown-ass women and in many grown-ass women afterwards, because this is one of those conversations that we're going to constantly be thinking about. Because if we tie it to going up in certain statuses, or we tie it to just having more happiness in our life, or whatever the case may be, and our friends aren't moving at the same rate we're moving, it's going to cause some feelings. So let's just label the feelings instead of pretending that it's not there. You know what I mean? That's my position. But that's also why y'all are my closest friends, because for each one of you all, when we have had an issue, we brought it to the forefront. It wasn't something that lingered. The people in my life who have done that, we're not close. They're not in that inner circle. They're in a different concentric circle, right? Because what I require of my friends is to label their feelings and to acknowledge what's going on and to come and talk to me about it. And so while, like Nikki said, that's not common, it doesn't mean it's not capable, because we've been doing it. So I know it's possible. That's my shit. Oh, see, there it go again.
She passed the mic to you, D.
D a little frozen.
Oh.
And Nikki says she figured out some stuff at her house. But
there was so
sorry, D.
My internet is breaking up. No, my internet is breaking up. I had to make a little note really quick. I made 2 notes. Grace does not equal forgiveness. We can unpack that. And then you mentioned labeling your feelings, Dr. Plummer. Everyone cannot label their feelings. I am probably learning still as a 42-year-old adult on what the emotion is and how to call it out and how to deal with it in my own element, because I didn't grow up, and I've said this before, in a emotionally expressive environment. So a lot of times people feel a certain way. That's probably why we have that saying as Black people. We feel a certain way because we can't name it. And what happens when we can't name it?
True.
I think a lot of times too, we can name it, but we don't want to. I think sometimes we can't. Like, I'm still trying to process it. And if somebody is forcing it on you, like, well, what is going on? And what is, somebody's in your face trying to force something out of you that you have not necessarily processed yet. Yes, I agree. I do also believe that there are times when you do know what it is, but you're scared to say it. You are because you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be, judged, essentially. So the feeling safe, and that's feeling safe with the possibility of whatever the outcome might be, if you actually say what it is that you're feeling. Because now it's like, okay, well, this person's going to feel this way about me, and now they're going to be talking about me, or they're going to say something to me that's going to hurt my feelings even more. Like, I don't want to cry, I don't want to admit this, like, or we sweep so much under the rug, like, oh, it's all good, I'll get over it. And a lot of times you don't get over it.
Yeah.
And you don't get over it, and it comes out in some other way, and it's going to continue to come out in all these different ways. I was going to say, what happens when you don't agree, or you can't acknowledge whatever that person thinks is happening with you? Are you as the person that's pointing out to your friend, are you now mad at your friend because you know that this is what's happening, but they don't? Are you mad? Or, like, do you leave them alone?
I think I need the context. Can you use me and you, for example? So are you saying that you see something in me, but I don't acknowledge it?
Mm-hmm.
So then do you become mad? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Do we just move on? Or now, am I mad? Like, am I mad at you and I'm treating you a certain way because I know this is happening, but you refuse to acknowledge it?
Oh,
I think it depends on the relationship, and can you call that out for your friend? Can you guys talk about it together? I also think you need to know who your friend is. Again, back to the emotional thing, and I'm gonna go ahead and put my business out here. Talking to my therapist, thank God for therapy. Shout out to Onyx. She was asking me the opposite of an emotion, and the opposite was sorrow. And I was like, oh, sorrow, that's a feeling. Like, that's a thing. People feel sorrowful, because I just didn't grow up in that type of environment. And I also think, as friends, and this is probably Deana's opinion, we have a responsibility to kind of hold the mirror up sometimes to our friends and say, hey, this is you, this is what you're doing, this is what I think it is. How do you feel about it? What do you think? And we should give each other a grace, again, enough grace and understanding, and hear each other, what we're saying, so we can be in a place to receive it. So we can actually process it and make any improvements we need to make. But I want friends who are going to hold up the mirror. Don't just look at me and be mad and turn away because you think you know what it is, and I might be struggling with this particular thing in my life.
yeah.
I guess maybe some sort of positive reinforcement, maybe, even if you don't see what I see, then it's just like, well, I just want you to know, if there's something going on, that I'm here, we can talk about it, we're in this together, we're friends. And positive reinforcement.
I'm trying to think about that, Jay. I don't know if I've ever gotten mad at my friend because I saw something happening and they didn't see it happening. That's what you're saying, right? Like, I see something happening and they don't see it happening. I think I don't feel mad. I think I feel sad and I feel scared. And I feel like, what is going to happen if this behavior continues? That's what I think I feel. I don't think I get angry. I get like, this is going to keep on happening. Can I handle this? Do I have the patience for this? Do I have the capacity for this? Like, what happens if they never change? I think I get scared. I think I get scared.
Yeah.
Which then made me think a few minutes ago when you talked about sometimes people know the emotion in the friendship and they're too afraid, they're too scared to say it. Isn't that the same as jealousy then? Like, does fear belong in a friendship? Like, so we're saying jealousy doesn't belong in a friendship, but fear causes people to do some wild stuff too, right? Like, so, but isn't fear natural too? Like, I of course, I'm like, what does all of this mean? Because if the emotions are natural, but how you address the emotion is based off of a skill, then shouldn't the emotion be allowed, but the skill set outweighs the emotion, or the skill set uses is the utilization that carries the friendship? Maybe it's a skillful friendship. And
Right.
there's
Oh, go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say, I think that goes back to your point, D, where everybody does not have the skill set. Everybody is not as emotionally mature as some others. I'll admit that I sweep a lot of stuff under the rug because I don't want to deal with it. Sometimes I feel like it's not that serious, it's not that important. And I know that there are times where I might make some random comment about something that bothered me, but still be like, oh no, I was just saying, and it really was an issue for me, or it made me feel some type of way. And I didn't want to acknowledge it. So now I'm saying, these saying little things here and there. And sometimes, there have been times when I could not acknowledge it. I knew I felt some type of way, and I could not acknowledge it because I didn't want to go through the conversation. I didn't want to have the conversation. I didn't think it was that serious. I felt like my comment was enough, but it's also not fair. So again, I think it depends on who you feel, the safety level of that relationship that you're in. For me, a lot of things are about delivery. I can't receive anything from you, even if you're telling me something that's so good for me. I can't receive it if you are not saying it in a manner, if you know me, then you know how to talk to me, you know how to approach me. And so then there's a safety issue. So I think it's different strokes for different folks in different situations. I don't think that should be it. But then there's also a lack of confidence that goes with that. And like you said, just fear of what comes next. And so you just decide to sit with it and just, oh well, better luck next time, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna be transparent right now. I got fear in this moment. I'm like, am I sitting here thinking that there's certain friendships and relationships I have, and like you guys are mentioning, maybe they just not telling me what they feel, or maybe they sweeping it under the rug. Like that's my true in the moment feeling. Like, how does that happen when you have friends that you think one thing is happening, but something else may be happening? Like, how do you address that?
Well, I'll put myself out there, and I made a sly comment in our group chat today. Y'all said something about the guys or whatever, and I was like, well, I wasn't at brunch. And you were like, I know. I said that to say, you motherfuckers didn't invite me to brunch. Like, why wasn't I at brunch? But
oh shit, I totally didn't answer that right.
But
we're invited.
but I do, and I know this because I am on the receiving end of that emotion with other friends. So it's like you do different things with different people for different reasons. Like, you have different experiences with different people. Maybe some of you all are part of a different clique. So we are us, and then y'all are them. So sometimes it's just not for you. So it's not that I don't want to invite you, but that's just not, this is my other crew. So, you know, I was just like, everybody else in Gaul was at brunch but me. Well, and probably Ayana. But so yeah, so I made a sly remark. It wasn't that serious, but I felt some type of way. So again, it was kind of fleeting, but kind of not.
And see, that's the thing. I think a lot of times we have to realize that our emotions are fleeting. And if I feel like this emotion is not going to be sustained for more than half a day, a couple of hours,
Yeah.
I'll speak on it, because tomorrow I'm going to be over it, or in an hour I'm going to be over it. But if you feel like, you know, it's entrenched in your spirit and in your heart, then that's something you need to bring up to people. That's something you might need to process and dig a little deeper into. Yeah.
Yo,
Emotions, so.
This is wild to me. I was sitting here like, what am I experiencing in this moment? And then you started bringing up fear, and I was like, I'm gonna talk about it. You know what's funny about that, Jay? It then talks about how we communicate, because when my response was, I know that is such a logical response, isn't it? Like, I didn't even pick up on the fact that there was an emotion underneath that. Like, and that, like, I'm sitting here like, girl, you are too goddamn logical, LaNail. Like, are you serious? Because I was like, yeah, I know you wasn't at the brunch. That's why we explaining who the guys are, right? Like, and you were, but what you were experiencing was, maybe, I don't want to label it for you, but maybe like exclusion, or like, why you didn't invite me and stuff like that. And I'm just sitting here being super logical. To give context, Dee and I were invited to the brunch by Nikki's other friends too. So we didn't organize it. But it's funny because this the stuff that happens in real friendships, where if it doesn't come out, then people, not that you would, because in knowing you later, you was gonna tell me something like, girl, what is this goddamn brunch y'all keep talking about, right? But isn't that how things happen in these friendships that causes issues? Like, somebody feels some way, somebody doesn't pick up on something, or they respond inappropriately, or, you know, is never addressed, or just balls up. Because we could have brunch in 3 weeks, we could have brunch in 6 weeks, and at some point you might cuss us all out and be like, why y'all don't keep inviting me to this brunch? And we're not even thinking, ain't that how the shit happens? Ain't that how it happens? Yep. Man, that was a good point, Jay. All right, my bad.
It's important to kind of make those comments and make those notes so we can address it like this.
Yeah, man, we just had like a real like real moment.
But it's like, what, like, back to the fleeting part of it, what is there to address? Really, there's nothing to address, in my opinion. I think talking about it, you know, I know everybody has their different groups. So, you know, y'all might talk, and then we might talk, and you know, all these pockets of group chats here and there. So you say so many things, just like you said, you know, I'm talking to my wife and kids, and I thought I told them, but I told y'all. So a lot of times you start talking in this other group, and because this many people in this group are also in this group, you know, it's just a natural conversation. So I think the process is to be okay with knowing that this is my group when it's my group, but they also have other groups. Where it just so happens that, you know, they connected with some other people and they spend more time with these people, and I don't. And so I do understand that. It doesn't mean that sometimes it doesn't make you feel away, especially because we also talk to each other every day. So when it's all these mix of events and stuff happening in our conversation too, and it's like, well, what are y'all talking about? Well, what are you all doing? But anyway, I experienced that in other friendships where somebody's like, well, you never invite me to anything. You always with this person, you always with that person. But I also know, and what I say to them is, you also know that I don't plan anything. I can't, have I ever invited y'all to anything? Most times when we see each other is because we are at somebody's something or one of y'all had something. So that's another thing too. I don't even plan anything. So why am I even, why do I feel away? And another friend, kind of the same thing. Like, you don't plan it. If you want to hang out, let me know. Like, you know, so
Yeah.
it's
No,
just a
that's
circle.
real. That's real. That goes back to what Dee was talking about like also knowing your friends, right? Like, and knowing what's happening and what their strengths are, or what their areas of improvement are, or what they actually working on. Because every weakness we have ain't actually getting worked on, right? Like, and that's a whole thing too. Like, everybody ain't working on, you know. No, I just talk a lot. I'm not working on that. I'm not working on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, like, but there's other things I am working on. Like, and I think that goes back to the conversation we were saying a little bit ago about knowing your people, but then also giving grace, because life ain't perfect. And so your friendship's not going to be perfect, right? You are not perfect. So your friendship can't even possibly be perfect because you are imperfect, you know? And so being able to talk about it. And I know that we keep saying, but everybody can't do this and everybody can't do that. So I want to spend a second there if we can, because just because somebody can't do it today doesn't mean they're not capable of doing it, or that they won't do it tomorrow. Like, if we're talking about being grown as women and our own evolutions, at some point, yes, we acknowledge that everybody can't do it, but that doesn't become an excuse. Like, that's just clear fact statement. But then don't we get to require, or don't we get to say you need to be able to do this, or I need somebody around me that can do that? Like, and that may mean that the friendship can't continue if a person is not working on it and they don't actually want to work on it. But yes, a person may not know all their emotions, but that doesn't mean that they're not capable of doing it. And maybe that's where in the friendship you extend grace, because you're like, friend, I need you to be able to tell me this, right? I need you to be able to tell me. And maybe you can't do it today. And maybe you can't even do it by the end of this year. But I need to know that this is actually something you are working on, so that I could feel safe enough to know that I'm still making the right decision by being invested in our friendship.
Yeah, well, that comes with acknowledgement. So we
You're
can't
right.
even get that far if you can't acknowledge that there's an issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now it's also who's right, who's right and who's wrong. So now you think you're the gospel, you think you have all the answers, and I don't. So now you got that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, nobody has to be the gospel, but everybody get to say what they want for themselves. Right. And I know for me what I need from my friends, and my friends keep telling me what they need from me. Right. And maybe we strive to give each other those things.
And that all goes back to self-awareness and knowing what you need, knowing that you need a friend who can articulate their emotions, or at least have a conversation and say, you know, I felt the way, it pricked my heart, you know, all those wonderful abstract things we say about the way we feel. You know, say what's on your mind and have the engagement and kind of talk it through, so you can get to a place where, you know, there's peace and you can extend grace. But, you know, we're not God. There's only so much grace I'm gonna give you. Keep burning that line.
Yeah.
Because we can't go back.
And you know what? I think
go back.
I mean, like LaNail is very I feel like you give a lot of grace, a lot of forgiveness.
Maybe too much, Slim. I'm working on that.
Maybe too much sometimes. And I think I am the same way. You know, I don't know if it's to the same extent as you, but I think you also have a lot more people in your life too. So, you know, a lot of more you do a lot more socializing than I do. So, but for me, I think at this point in my life, there are things I feel more comfortable with letting things go. with recognizing that some things just aren't for me. And I don't have to be, I think sometimes I've gotten caught up with just wanting to be a part of stuff, or just wanting to have friends, or you know, and I don't know if I want to use the word popular as a term, as a word, I mean, as a, you know, choice of thought, but just to be a part of these things. But like I said, as I'm getting older, it becomes tiring, and it's just like I'm not dealing with that, especially if you have been hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are so many other things to deal with. You know, I just let go of a friendship off of something that happened one time recently, and I felt, I mean, the person only wronged me in my opinion, that one time, and it was enough for me to just be like, oh yeah, no, it hurt me so bad, like I don't even, you know, somebody talked about reconciling, and I say no to 5-10 years from now. Absolutely not. I felt like I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that anymore. If you feel like you can do something like that, then you are capable of anything, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And I was actually proud of myself for having that feeling, and recognizing that everybody's just not for me. So then I started processing the entire relationship, and you know, talking to somebody else, they were just like, that person's, I never thought that person was a good person. You know, I just dealt with them because they were your friend. But from the moment I met this person, I knew they were a user,
Mhm.
and using everybody in their lives essentially,
Mhm.
because they're unhappy. And you just happen to meet a person at a time when they needed people,
Mhm.
because people were taken away from them for other reasons, you know. And you know, where I don't 100% agree, I actually value that relationship, and I enjoyed it. But in hindsight, I kind of agree with some of it. You know, some of it was just using,
Mhm.
and they will use whoever will allow them to do
Mhm.
so. And I don't even know that they're conscious of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, point is, I am getting to a point where I'm okay with letting people go, or I'm okay with, you know, just doing something else.
Mhm.
So.
That goes back to one of the conversations we had before about people being in your life for that reason, season, or a lifetime, right? And the grief that we sometimes experience when we think it's a lifetime and it's really a season, or we think it's a reason and it ends up being much longer than that, right? And maybe of all the things, of all the reasons why this person was in your life, maybe one of those reasons was to challenge you for this very moment, for you to be like, and what is your finite boundary that you will not accept anymore? And God probably knew that the moment they allowed the person to come into your life, right? But instead, we think it's going to be something else. And there's so many reasons why a person is in our life, and we just we give ourselves the grace and the space to grieve when it's not what we thought it was going to be, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes part of, like you mentioned, Jay, that healing, because if you didn't heal from it, you'd become bitter, right? And it carry over into other things. And the beauty of being like, maybe one of the reasons is for me to be okay letting things go. You know what I mean? Like, that's like damn powerful. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And I you know, I actually, I know that I will miss the relationship because it, you know, it was fun. And I do think that we did things for each other for sure. But like I said, in hindsight, I felt like it was more of me being there for that person during the time where, you know, and maybe that was the point. Maybe that person did need me. And I served my purpose too. So maybe it, you know, it went both ways. There's some part as I play the story the scenario back in my head where I think that I could have quite possibly overreacted a little bit. But then again, that had to happen too, you know, for I had to feel it in the way that, you know, I had to feel it in that way in order for me to completely let it go. Otherwise, I still would have been, oh, okay, well, let's work it out. Let's talk it out. Like, why? What are you, you know? And so I'm actually glad of it. So.
Can we switch topics real quick? I know we're going to be ending real soon, but I've kind of been itching about this for a while. And then, Jay, I think you brought it up a little bit ago, and I was like, ooh, can we talk about it? What the hell is the difference between confidence and cocky? But I don't know if, like, what's the difference? I look at my baby and I'm just putting his business out in the street. But this dude, he is just like my father. I think they are like the cockiest people I know. And I actually think it's kind of cute for both my dad and my son, right? And then I hear people say different things about me. Like, I feel like I'm very confident, but I am also very humbled to God and grateful, right? In a lot of different ways. But what's the difference between confidence and cocky? Like, what is actually that thin line? And is it bad? Is any of it bad? I'm asking y'all, like, what's confidence? What's cocky? What's bad? What's not? And going back real quick to my son, I do believe that while I try to ground him as much as my triple, quadruple Virgo self can try to ground anybody, I do believe that there's certain things in life that's just going to is going to address some of that for him, right? Like, I be trying, y'all. I be trying, you know, people be out here like, these men like this because they mamas. I want to put for the record for whoever my future daughter-in-law is, I be trying. And some of this is just going to be life. Some of this is going to be life correction because I be trying. But confidence, cocky, what's the thin line? And are you confident or cocky? Be honest. Don't be bullshitting.
It depends on what it is for me and whether I'm confident or cocky. There are moments where I feel like I'm just where I should be in my groove, doing the thing that God ordained me to do. And then, you know, probably should be humble, but I might be a little cocky, you know. But there are moments where I know that it was hard to get here. It took a lot of encouragement, a lot of push. And, you know, I may be confident in front of people and you know, but I think it just depends on the moment. I think it depends on who is in the room and how it is expressed and how it is received by the people in the room. Because you know, we work out together. You might say some little cocky bravado thing about the weight you lifted and all this good stuff. Which for me is cocky, but it's funny in that moment. Now, if you're in a room full of people who may have, you know, financial issues and you talk about the money you make, that might be perceived as inappropriate. So I just think it depends on the setting and the tone that it's given and who is on the receiving end to constitute whether it's confidence or cockiness.
Yeah. So you're both confident and cocky.
In some settings, yes.
Yeah. You got to put the qualifier in there.
Yes.
What about you, Jonai?
Y'all are probably the only people who see.
We're the only ones that's gonna see cocky, you said?
Most of the time. I'm always too worried I'm gonna offend somebody gonna take it bad, somebody's ego is gonna be damaged. You know, I'm just dollar down, dollar back.
Yeah.
I think so I think sometimes cockiness comes from insecurity. And so we tend to brag about, So there's the thin line, right? Is it bragging, or is it cocky and bragging versus secure? This is something that I am secure in. So I'm gonna tell you about this. I'm gonna tell you this about me, but then I'm quiet on other things. But this is I'm here on in this aspect, but talk about this and I don't have nothing to say. So I think sometimes cockiness is from an insecurity. Sometimes you just have that personality, and somebody, maybe, your head's been beefed up by somebody else. I'm super cute because everybody tells me, which also could still be an insecurity, because you might not actually feel that way about yourself. You only feel that way because everybody's told you so. And am I cocky or secure?
Nah, that's not what I said. I said cocky or confident.
Oh, confident. I'm sorry. Cocky or confident. I don't think that I'm cocky. I actually don't think that I'm ever cocky. I might be sometimes. And my wife is always talking about me and my trips. So when I talk about, when I was in Europe, I went to 13 countries or whatever, she'll start to say the story before I can finish it, because, somehow a conversation always comes up with somebody else, and she's just like, and I dated somebody that was like that. she would tease and say, oh, I played tennis with the Queen when I was in England, mocking me, I had tea and biscuits with, but if I actually think about it, I'm telling you these things because I am proud of them, and I do think that it's cool. However, I do feel like I'm lacking in so many areas, so that is my opportunity for me to tell you something grand about me. So that I think is grand, where these days everybody been everywhere, and who cares, for real, so I don't, that could be cocky, that part, but in general, I don't think that I tend to be cocky. And I think there are times where I think that I am confident. I think I'm very confident when I'm doing gym stuff. I think I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. And there are times when I'm quiet because I'm not confident. So, but cocky, I think, is very rare for me.
I agree, girl. I'm sitting here like, dang, have I ever seen it? I don't think I've ever seen you be cocky. But confident, yes. But cocky, because cocky is also like sometimes it's like a throw it in your face kind of element, right? And I don't think that I've seen that in you. And then D, when I do see it in you, like you said, we're always joking, right? It's like banter. It's not like, I don't know if I could ever see, I don't know how I would feel if I saw somebody being cocky. I think I would be turned off if I saw somebody being cocky in a serious situation. I would be like, you are disgusting, right? Like that's what I would be thinking. But it's always playful. So
every day.
Huh?
I said, but people do it every day. People do it in boardrooms. People do it in the office. They do it every day. But it is a turnoff.
I think so. I think so. Because when I see the cockiness, like I talked about with my dad or my son, or even in myself, my wife, it's always playful. It's always like played up. You know what I mean? It's not like anybody is going around like really saying that. Ew, if somebody like really was like that in real life, that would be like really bad.
I think
that's a good point, D. Oh man. Okay, go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
I think a lot of times too, as friends, we give each other the opportunity to be cocky. So, we tend to over highlight something. I don't want to say over highlight, but concise in DC terms. You know, like over highlight something that somebody has going on. But you know, we're in the Black girl movement, you know, era, and you know, being there for our friends, being supportive, not being jealous or envious, you know, just supporting our friends and actually give them the opportunity, you know, yes, friend, say less, let's go, you know, all that stuff that we do for each other. So I think in those moments we give each other those opportunities to beef up. Like, you did that, sis, like, let's go.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's a moment of cockiness. And I think sometimes we are cocky. We intentionally go to certain people and say these things, and where, you know, it could look, it could be more cocky. You know, I put it on social media and whatever, like, you know, everything doesn't have to go on social media. And I go to these certain people because I know they're going to let me be. They're going to beef me up. They're going to also celebrate my win. And it's almost like it's our win. So I intentionally come to you because I know you here for this shit. I know you down for me, you riding, and I know we gonna be like, yes. and we need that. We need that sometimes. Like, yeah, I did
So then
that.
maybe you do. So maybe you are cocky sometimes, Jonai.
I mean, maybe, but I think it's very rare. I think I'm actually pretty quiet.
Yeah, you are. And the older you get, the more quiet you becoming. I'm gonna have to start knocking on your door over there. Tell your wife I'm be coming over so I could hear you talk.
Yeah.
You had me
But
scared. What was this, a couple weeks ago, D? You remember I was tripping like, you heard from Jonai? Where Jonai? We was both over here like, where Jonai at? You got a little too quiet for me. D, you ought to know that I hit her up and I said, if you do not answer this phone call in a few minutes, then I'm coming looking for you.
That's what you do.
We did that to D too a few weeks ago.
We did. We did.
I was like, wait a minute. I hit LaNail. I was like, you talk to D? But yeah, I think, I don't know what I was doing that week, but lately I've tried to just kind of go off the radar a little bit because I can lack focus sometimes. So I can't be doing, for my whole life, I've been doing the most. And so sometimes I do the most and don't accomplish anything. So I'm trying to get to this point where I'm just like, all right, I got to shut all this stuff down for today because I just have too many things to do. I got to get something done instead of opening up all these things or whatever. So that's what that was about. Friends listening. Ain't nothing wrong with me. But yeah, I think I'm a watcher and just learning to take in stuff and see, you know, learn how to move differently. So,
I love that.
Where I thought that I do think that I'm an extrovert, where I feel like I can adapt to whatever situation I'm in, and I do like people. But something that I learned a few years ago, and a friend pointed it out to me. She was like, "You're weird as fuck," and I was like, "She's like, oh no," she called me awkward. She's like, "Yo, awkward ass," and I was like, "Awkward? Is that what it is?" I knew there was something about me, but I could not figure it out. Like, there are times when I am in places and I'm mingling and whatever, but I feel like I'm outside of my body, like I'm not really there. And when I got with Charmaine, she pointed it out too. And she was like, "Yeah, I'm the same way. We two weirdos together, you know." But yeah, a friend, somebody that I met, you all know I went to that meditation retreat some years ago. And this was a friend somebody that I met there in silence. We connected. It was pretty deep, right? And we're friends to this day. And I think that was like 2012 or 13 or something like that. But anyway, she pointed that out. She said that to me. And it's, of course, we started talking like we had known each other for years. And yeah, she pointed that out. And I was like, I could never put a word to the feeling. Like never. I don't even think I would have come up with that myself to this day. And yeah, so sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of, you know, singing in the background, kind of.
Funny enough, I think that I'm awkward too, mostly because I am not, because I always get deep really fast, and sometimes that there's no place for that, and I don't know how to not do that. So I'm like,
that's why my wife likes you so much.
Yeah, because I'm like, people will be like, oh, huh?
That's why everybody like you.
We like that. No, everybody don't like me, but and sometimes it's because of that, because I'll be like, ooh, this cloth is yellow, like the sunshine that shines bright. Isn't God good to give us the sun on this day? But if the sun burned too hot, it's gonna scorch the grass. And what it means when
I'll be like, that thing yellow like that man's buttery teeth over there.
What did I walk back into? What in the world?
We're actually about to close down, but Jay was saying that somebody told her and she realized that it was true that she's awkward. And I was like, shit, yeah, okay. I'm awkward too.
I thought you were awkward because you only can bounce one butt cheek at a time.
Yeah, and it's only on one side. It's like,
okay, I'm sitting here like, can I? Yeah, no, I can do both.
And then my face be looking like this. You know, y'all see me doing trap cardio. It don't be right, y'all. It don't be right.
It don't be wrong though.
Can we?
I just told you it's better.
No.
See, that's what it was. See. I know that we're getting late, and we got some things that we got to do for ourselves individually. But what if we start ending these grown-ass women conversations with like one thing that we took away, right? Like, we hope that the people that are joining us, whenever they join us, however they get drawn and attracted to grown-ass women, that we get to feed something into their lives. But that's not why we do this, right? Like, we're really doing this for ourselves to talk and to process and to deepen our own friendships, and everybody hopefully gets to benefit. But what's something that, what if we start ending? And if I'm not consistent in asking, I ask that you guys hold me consistent with it. But what if we start ending with like, so what was your takeaway from this? Like, what did you get from this? Like, maybe it was something we learned about ourselves. Maybe it was something we learned about our friend. Maybe it was something we learned about friends in general. Maybe we had aha moments. Maybe it was a reinforcer. I don't know. But like, if friendships are about investing in ourselves and in other people, like, maybe we could start ending with thinking about what we take away.
So, I shall go first. Well, one, the takeaway is juggling life, and life is always challenging. I'm sorry I missed some of the conversation because I surely and deeply look forward to it and everyone's insight. But a takeaway is more of I'll say a takeaway as that's been present is to always make sure that we have self-regulation with self-awareness. Because it's almost like self-regulation is the action after self-awareness. So. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, because I'm having all these moments in myself. Like, yes, self-regulation comes after self-awareness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. Carr Kennedy.
I'll go. I think what I took from this is that it's okay to be yourself, to be who you are, and to be able to show that to your friends, if that's who they really are to you. So to be open, to be honest, to consider your own safety and the safety of your friends, and to do you. You know, we get in these circles and we talked about jealousy and envy and that kind of thing. And just because somebody's doing something that you think is grand doesn't mean that it's grand for you. You know, you have your own path. And, you know, I think Nikki said earlier, you know, it's not jealousy. It's like, oh, maybe I need to sit down and think about what I could be doing, you know, and it doesn't have to be the same as what you're doing. It's just a motivation piece. And just surround yourself with positivity and people and places that help you grow. And of course, you do have your friends that are just there for fun, and you know, we just laugh, you're a good time, and that kind of thing. So we have different friends for different reasons and seasons. But those that you hold true and that you actually do trust, you know, make sure you stay true to you and to your real friends.
For sure.
All right. I think probably over the course of all of these segments, I've learned that there is a place for grace in relationships, especially friendships. Y'all know me, I'm quick to cut somebody off and slow to let them in. There's definitely a place for grace and acknowledgement of how fleeting emotions.
Yeah. I think for me, it was the awareness in the moment of, if you're gonna have a lifetime full of a lifetime friend, you're gonna have a whole bunch of lifetime emotions that come with that. And while I said it like hit me in the chest. You ever had those moments where you say something out loud just in conversation, but it ends up really being for you? I think that was the moment where I was like, man, when you got a lifetime friend, you're gonna have a lifetime full of emotions, and you gotta be okay with that. You know, you gotta figure out what that place is. And for me, you know, that is gonna require prayer and discernment, right? Because I also, to the point of, I have grace and forgiveness for people, I always don't know when to cut it off, right? Like when it's not good anymore. So I think that was it. Like with a lifetime friendship, you're gonna have lifetime emotions, and to give space to process that. The other thing is to not take for granted my friendships, right? Like I sometimes think I know so much about you guys, and can predict when I am off, right? Like we had the whole exchange today and I like totally missed something. And so I think that's a reminder to me too, like check in, make sure things are the same or different or whatever the case may be, but don't just take it always at face value, because sometimes something else could be there that I, in my very logical way, could accidentally overlook. Yeah. We good? Anybody had anything else they want to say?
I was gonna say, I think we need an opening like theme video or something.
Yeah,
like, ooh, Deana.
Talk about that when we get
No,
on.
remember it's the theme song. Remember the beat? Do y'all remember the beat I used to tell you? Like sometimes when somebody walk by and they snatch you like do 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 do. Listen, what plays in my mind.
I just saw a glimpse of myself doing that dance, and I was like, I look like somebody drunk ass auntie. Come on, baby, come on over here and dance. Like, ew, LaNail. I'm gonna wear a shirt with sleeves next time because I'm looking a little crazy. I'll ask the team to think about that, Jay. I actually think that we do have a bit of an intro on YouTube. I got to go back and check it, but we could make something here. We could make some here. Anybody that's listening, if you want to volunteer some of your services, we are here for your free practice with grown ass women. But definitely built into us as well.
I wanted to say, just give a shout out to our fifth grown ass woman who couldn't be here with us today, Ayana K. We missed you today. We know that you are somewhere doing mommy things with our beautiful Nye. So anyway, shout out to you. We love you and can't wait to see you next time.
I'm gonna go right to the group chat and be like, Jonai just shouted you out. That's what I'm gonna say right there.
It was an AKA called you out. Bring your ass.
Oh.
I'm joking.
Well, what did we say a second ago? That's that safety and friendship, right?
No, that wasn't one of those.
She will receive it in love anyway. Well, let's go ahead and end. So for everybody that listened in on with us today, we talked about so much, right? Like Kevin Samuels and grace and friendship and the role of emotion in friendships and, who we are. We talked about being real and having real life experiences in our friendships and in our relationships and the need for authenticity. And some confidence and cockiness too, right? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, friend.
And maybe next time, we always say, well, we're going to talk about it next time, but then we don't actually talk about it because we be like moving on to other things that's happening. But hopefully next time, if we could be consistent with it, we could talk about stonewalling. We could talk about the age to get married, right? Because we keep talking about how aware you got to be, how you got to regulate, how you got to have these skills. Does that mean that you have to get to a chronological or a maturity age before you can even get married? And what would that ideal age be? And then maybe we'll invite some more people to Grown Ass Women for an episode here or there. We thought it was going to be some guys that we met at the park, but we got the club, not the park people. But
at the Plummer.
But it could be whomever. Let us manifest having maybe a guest on Grown Ass Women and what that would look like. So I know D said at some point in the near future, we may record from the winery that we like to go to, or we may record from somebody's house. So y'all that have been following us, just look for us to be in different scenarios and spaces over the next couple months while we try some new things. So I love y'all grown as women. Thank you for holding me accountable always and loving in on me and loving on yourselves. And we a grown ass friend group. I love us, y'all. So, all right. Good night, goodbye, good day, good, whatever you at and whatever you doing. We love you.
Peace.
Peace.